Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Joy of Game Mastering. Give me just a moment. I'll take that thing off of my face and turn off the music, and we will dive on in. It's good to be back. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I am the host for this program, the Joy of Game Mastering, a program all about simplifying and demystifying the great challenge that is being a game master in the tabletop RPG space. I'm the line developer for Mutants Masterminds here at Green Room Publishing, and I have been a game master for quite some time. If you're new to the show, welcome in. Thank you for joining us. I know it's been a little while since we've had a show on, but I've been doing a lot of work on the side, getting a lot of things ready. Convention season is nearly upon us. I just got back from a convention this weekend, so yeah, I've got a lot of stuff that I've been catching up on, and I'm excited to be here with you all today, talking about the joy of game mastering. This program is really important to me, and I want it to continue on. So, in that spirit, I figured I'd jump on today and have a bit of a planning episode with all of you, just to see sort of what topics you're interested in talking about, what you need advice for, just to schedule out a few weeks worth of content for the next few months as we go into convention season, as we get into a bunch of interesting releases coming out for a bunch of our products and all that sort of fun stuff. So, just how's everybody doing? If you're out there, let me know if there are topics that you want to talk about. My goal is to do this program every other Tuesday. So today, and then we'll be back on the 14th, and so on and so forth, every 2 weeks. And I'd like to plan out topics for at least the next few months or so. Repeat every 2 weeks. All right, good news. Yeah, this is a program that's all about helping people learn how to be a better game master, how to dive into sort of that particular string of eccentricities. The convention I went to this weekend was a small convention called MatineeCon, where I ran 3 Mutants and Masterminds games. I ran a Star Wars game set in Mutants and Masterminds, or Mutants and Masterminds game set in Star Wars, I guess would be the proper way of saying that. I ran a Midnight Suns game, and I ran a Harley Quinn, the animated series game. So a lot of silliness, a lot of fun stuff. It was a really good time for everybody involved. And I'm bummed I wasn't here yesterday, but I had to recover from the convention. So it's I'm glad that we're back. Glad that we're doing the thing. And if you're not watching live, please feel free to put comments down below about what sort of topics you want to see covered. Hey, Squire, how's it going? Hope you're having a good week. I wanted to do a planning episode for the Joy of Game Mastering, so here we are. So if there's anything you want to talk about, Squire, please feel free to let me know if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, or if there's something you'd like me to break down, any sort of topic like that. I kind of want to get just more general advice for game mastering. Not necessarily M&M stuff, but diving into topics. Maybe the one we do on the 14th will be the fundamentals of game mastering, or Alex's top 10 tips for new GMs. Because new game masters are the most important thing that we can create as gamers. That's what allows game mastering to go on, and new games to be had, and all that good stuff. It's very important to me. Yeah, I was just I was exhausted. I got like 16 hours of sleep last week, getting ready for the convention, and I've had some edits that I've been trying to finish up, so it was pretty good. Malaloki says, I'm pretty good at running pre-made adventures and adding bits to suit my players, but I'm not great at taking that step into fully creating my own custom adventures. We could definitely do a topic about creating custom adventures. Any particular sorts of adventures? Are you talking like one-shots? Are you talking campaign stuff? Custom adventure design. Mostly run campaigns. Awesome. Yeah. I will add that to the list of topics to break down. But custom adventures are a ton of fun. I mean, I sort of started doing that before I got into doing module adventures. And now I'm back to full circle to mostly running modular adventures, but that's because that's what I have to write for publication. But what kind of games do you play, Malaloki? Any particular genres or anything like that that you'd like a little more insight into? So we've got the 14th, the 28th. The next one after that is the 11th. The 11th is just a week before Origins, so I'll probably want to talk about convention stuff on that day. What to expect for conventions. Hello, Brian. Troy's not here, but I am very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Was there already a discussion on balancing adventure expectations as a GM for leaving it open versus leaving it open-ended for your players? There has not been yet, but that is definitely a good topic of discussion. Let me chuck that on there. Loki, I primarily run high fantasy, Pathfinder 2, but my group is being kind to me and letting me occasionally run some short adventures and other games to keep me sane and fresh. I'm glad they're giving you the chance to run a few other things. I definitely understand getting burned out on a specific genre. Ran superheroes, hoping to run some modern stuffs too. Cthulhu Awakens and stuffs. Awesome. Cthulhu Awakens is a great game. I got to write an adventure for Cthulhu Awakens that I'm excited for people to get their hands on. I think it's coming out pretty soon. GM expectations versus player agency. I think GM expectations versus player agency is a very nice way to frame the railroading versus sandbox conversation. Because that's really what it boils down to is the GM has expectations and the players don't necessarily know what those expectations are, and they want to feel like their contributions are meaningful. Hey, Gerald, good to see you. And Malaloki, it's a good thing you run Pathfinder if you run mostly custom games because Pathfinder has a lot of those good adventure paths and things like that. I'm going to pre-make the Scooby Gang for my players in the modern day adventure from the back of the book. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Scooby-Doo adventures are always tons of fun. I don't know if I wonder if there's a Scooby-Doo RPG. It seems, I don't know what the space for that would be, but let's see. Nope, they've got Scooby-Doo Munchkin, Scooby-Doo Betrayal at Mystery Mansion, but no, oh, here we go. This new mystery-solving RPG is a Scooby-Doo game and everything but name. Hey, Dom, how's it going? Mystery Business is a new tabletop RPG that has players investigating haunted locations, search of the truth behind the apparent horror happenings. Each bringing take on the role of a group of friends, each bringing their own skills and approaches and their unusual companion. That's a ton of fun. Yeah, I like that. The Mystery Business was, I mean, that's a fun play on Mystery Incorporated, right? And that was a cool plot line in the Mystery Incorporated cartoon. The fact that there was a bunch of other Scooby gangs throughout history. Scooby-Doo versus Cthulhu is a ton of fun. Monster of the Week, yeah, would be good for Scooby-Doo RPG for sure. Um, yeah, so if you're just tuning in, we're doing some planning out for episodes in the Joy of Game Mastering. It's important to me that the show comes back, and I want to talk about things that are important to you guys. So I'm just trying to fill in topics of discussion. So far, we've added in 2 weeks, we'll be doing the fundamentals of game mastering. So, like my top 10 tips for people who are just getting into it. Then we're going to talk about uh, designing custom adventures as opposed to running an adventure out of the book, out of a module, things like that. We're going to get into what to expect for conventions. We're going to get into uh, talking about GM expectations versus player agency, and yeah, lots of fun stuff. Hey, RC, how's it going? And Rebel Moose, good to see you. Squire, I also have a group with varying levels of imagination and rules knowing, and making everyone feel like they're contributing and having fun is something I always worry about. That's a great topic for discussion. Involving everybody, or gauging people's interaction, gauging their feeling, the pacing, all that fun stuff. Um, Lots of good stuff. Hey Ken, good to see you. Yep, diving in. I'm going to call that topic, Squire, monitoring player engagement. And that can cover things like making sure everyone has the amount of spotlight that they're interested in, because not everybody wants to be in the spotlight. Some people are just there to have fun with their friends. But making sure everyone has time in the spotlight / something to do in the adventure. Helping your players help each other get involved. Pacing, interest, all that fun stuff. But yeah, if anybody else has topics, we're just chucking things on, seeing what looks good, seeing what feels good. Game Master Tuesday, yes. And if every week would be better than every other week, I'm happy to consider doing that. My Tuesdays have gotten a lot better in the last few months, and my mental health has gotten better in the last few months. So happy to chuck on some additional topics. Super bummed I missed Mutants and Masterminds Monday yesterday because it was a very good topic. We using Mutants and Masterminds to run genres that aren't superheroes is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I mean, I ran a Star Wars game at the convention I was at this weekend. So M&M is good for a ton. M&M's really good for anything that makes the player super awesome and super powerful, and it isn't about that fun stuff. You know, I love a mentally healthy Alex also. Non-combat sequence designs, happy to talk about that. Yeah, what's the weirdest or most unexpected genre I've run in M&M? Fallout's probably the weirdest one I've done for M&M, because I had to come up with a mechanic for the radiation sickness in a game that doesn't use hit points. Because in the video game, what happens when you get rads is your maximum health goes down, but that's not a thing in M&M. And finding a way to make that environmental hazard something that comes up all the time and is something to deal with is a level of sort of, I don't know, granularity that M&M isn't necessarily well suited for. But I found some interesting ways of tweaking with that. So we're talking non-combat sequences. I also did Harley Quinn the musical, which I guess was sort of a weird thing for M&M, but that game was going to happen in whatever system it was in. It wasn't really about rolling dice. It was about being ridiculous. Rebel Moose, I'm working on a campaign and I'm having trouble coming up with missions beyond fight X foes. I'm considered more puzzle elements and environments to deal with. I rescue people from a fire. My world is more grounded in reality, so I guess that's a major limiting factor. Can't just toss aliens into the mix, but maybe robots. Yeah. You could also, if you're comfortable with it and your players are comfortable with it, you could toss in uh, something that they can't fight, but they still have to overcome. Something like the public opinion turning against them, a new political candidate who isn't doing anything illegal, but is still making people unfavorable towards their characters. Uh, a police department that isn't corrupt, but is still trying to crack down on them because what they're doing is illegal. There's those are environmental hazards that aren't natural disasters or aliens, but they are something they can't punch their way out of. As I've always said, the best Marvel movies aren't superhero movies. They're movies in other genres that have superheroes in them. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it, but we're 10 years away from The Winter Soldier, and that's still one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time. And the first two Ant-Man movies, which were heist movies, are awesome. Hodgepodge says, Rebel Moose, are you looking for overall objections or encounter specific stuff, like a campaign that's not just about killing the bad guy, or are you looking for encounter types for dungeons? That's a good question. Puzzles are always great too. I mean, I love a good puzzle. Um, I think that does still fall into the non-combat challenge discussion, however. And Homecoming, yeah, Homecoming is just a great teenager movie. Although, if Diary of a Wimpy Kid had the guy opening the door and finding out that his girlfriend's dad was a supervillain, that would have been the biggest twist ever. Yeah, what other sorts of topics do you guys want to talk about? I've been a game master for a long time, and I just want to, there are things that I want to talk about that are, I don't know if they're necessarily new or interesting things for people. So I just like to check in. Maybe making a mashup live and then sort of expanding on it. You mean an Eminem mashup? Making memorable NPCs. It's a great topic. Memorable NPCs. Live Eminem mashup. Basically, just creating a quick skeleton of adventure and then expanding with the time available. Yeah, that would be good. I need to finish the last Eminem mashup, the Doc Holliday on Halloween at the Zoo combination of things. So maybe we'll just do that one live and call it. And I'll double dip my work. It'll be good. Yeah, and I mean, believe it or not, I have a lot of events that I still need to finish for conventions. So maybe getting on and doing some of my event preparation work could be a good use of our time as well. Raising the stakes seems to be a problem on IGM. I do it too quickly without proper escalation. Yeah, I think escalation of stakes is a great question because I know how that feels. It's I call that sort of the supernatural problem, where at the end of season 5 they stopped the apocalypse, and then they're like, okay, now what? And then they just got increasingly more ridiculous trying to find something that was bigger than that to handle. Jonathan Jackson, how would you plan for an adventure when your PCs are villains and aren't really driven by reactionary events and have to be more proactive? Yeah, that is a great question. That's actually two questions, I think. Villain PCs and proactive PCs. And proactive PCs is definitely an issue, specifically in the superhero genre, because superheroes tend to be reactionary by nature. They're intended to uphold the status quo, um, because they live in an idealized world generally, unless you're looking at like street level heroes who are trying to take down corrupt systems, or characters who come from nasty places that they need to make the change, or you're running a revolution, or you're running like a Wild West superhero story where it's about being proactive. Generally, villains drive the narrative in superhero stories. So coming up with ways to encourage your players to be proactive isn't necessarily tied to them being villains, but it does come down to making sure they have some sort of driving goal beyond I'm a villain. Preferably one that they're all striving towards together, so that even though they're a group of villains, they're all still on the same page. But we can definitely expand out and make that a whole discussion. How to make convention games that bring all the nerds to the yard. And they're like, I want a refund, please go away. Yeah, actually on June 11th, Gerald, I'm planning on talking about what to expect for conventions as a game master. That's the week before Origins, so I will be needing to remind myself what to expect going into it, because I'm running too many events this year. Running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm running 8 events at Origins this year. Hodgepodge says, couple of ideas. Environmental puzzles are very easy to design, like the party has to come up with some way to cross a river. Another good place to pull inspiration for those are, I don't know if you've played sort of mobile games on your phone that are like move the multiple colored liquids from one vial to another, or connect this series of pipes by color, or anything that's basically like a kindergartner level spatial awareness puzzle is a great puzzle to give your players to deal with, because they usually overthink it when that comes up. Negotiations with weird NPCs and enemies that are literally unkillable, like ghosts that had to be put to rest or satisfied. Yeah, that is very important. And coming up with ways to solve all of those issues that are not just one way. That's the other real meat of that discussion, is making sure you don't have load bearing clues, or there's only one way to solve a problem, being willing to roll with the punches with the players as they come. Squire says, here's one: how to not go crazy as a GM when you have to go on hiatus for a month because your kids have finals. I think that is I think the topic there is how to take good notes, how to maintain continuity when there are gaps related to scheduling. Uh, Believe me, when we went on our 6-month hiatus for our Freedom League Dark game that is just now coming back, I had to go back and watch a few of the episodes just to remember sort of what was going on, and to make sure that the things I set up were still things that matter and not just me making things up on the spot, which happens more often than I'm happy to admit. Mysteries or investigation encounters in general can also be a nice change of pace. Yep, like the party has to find the villain's notes hidden in his office. Yeah, I really like a closed room mystery as a one shot, or as a palate cleanser. Locking the players in a specific location that isn't a punching location. I remember really enjoying having a non-combat scene involving Dr. Sin, where the player interacting him realized, oh, no, 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 this is not a guy we want to fight. He could end us. Yeah, I think we could have a discussion about presenting threats to players or presenting genre expectations to players. Some of that will happen in session 0, but I think presenting things in game is its own discussion. I mean, like I'm thinking specifically of like Curse of Strahd. Anytime Strahd shows up to just mess with the players, that is, if you have the wrong group of people, they will just attack him and then they'll all die, and that'll be the end of the story. You have to come up with something else to go on. Are there 3E stats for Captain Thunder? I would have to double check. I don't believe we've converted him over to 3E just yet. He's definitely not in the Freedom City book, because in Freedom City continuity, he lost his powers in between 2nd edition and 3rd edition, and Ray Gardner Jr. became sort of the new Captain Thunder via Captain Atom Lightning Bolt suit. Also run adventure structures that just aren't about combat. Heist and jailbreaks are the classics. Yes. Yeah, heist, jailbreaks. I love a good heist. Finding ways to get in and out of places is really cool. I also love adventure structures like everybody's powers get swapped by shenanigans, or their spirits get put into each other's bodies and they have to deal with the consequences of that. And I love when an imp, like a fifth dimensional imp, shows up and ruins everybody's day. I've looked into a Phoenix Wright-esque session where the players are collecting evidence and have to work in a courtroom. That's really interesting because, for starters, there's a lot of things that superheroes do that wouldn't be admissible in court. So having to find a way to work around that is a ton of fun. But Jason, I'll look and see if we have 3E stats for Captain Thunder. If not, I'll work some up. And I'll share them over on the Atomic Think Tank. He rolled a plus 18 insight against the player's attempt to bluff him. Yeah, you don't want to mess with Dr. Sin. Even modern day Dr. Sin's dangerous. I've never run a power swap before. It sounds great. It's really fun. Another thing I did once to a group of players was they ran afoul of a demon who had reality bending powers who took away the letter M for a session, and anything in their power set that started with M went away. It wasn't accessible to them, and they had to figure out how to get M back. So that really screwed over the mentalist and the magician and the magnetic guy. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. Yeah, if you aren't privy to it, everybody, the Atomic Think Tank is back. If you head over, I believe, to atomicthinktank.com, you can get involved with a bunch of great communities about all of our games. There's a really flourishing Mutants and Masterminds community over there now, and then we have a bunch of fun stuff with Age, all of our Age lines. It's kind of neat. He wasn't even a villain for that module. He was a third party. Yeah, I mean, and that's how Dr. Sin should be. So we have a big mega event at Origins we run every year, which has 7 game masters and 35 players at least, which is nuts. And we talked about what Dr. Sin is doing for that event last night. The event's called Shadow War, and it's about Overshadow launching a group of attacks all across the world at the same time. So the 7 groups of heroes have to go stop his lieutenants and then figure out what's going on. Jason, I created a supervillain named Autocorrect who messed up signs around the city. I love it. Yeah, I like anything that messes with the reality of the situation, and sometimes when I'm not prepared enough, that's sort of the crutch I lean on, much to my chagrin. Like I ran a Midnight Suns game at the convention this weekend, and I wasn't prepared for it. I knew it was going to be about the Mole Man and moloids and magical nonsense happening. But I decided right before the adventure started that it was actually going to be a multiverse story, and the real villain was Lego Reed Richards, who was trying to pin everything on the Mole Man. They and like the multiverse stuff was hilarious. Wolverine turned into Hugh Jackman about halfway through, and I was like, "You grow about a foot, and you become significantly more handsome, Wolverine." And Ghost Rider's Dodge Charger got replaced with the Magic School Bus, so he got to hell ride the Magic School Bus. And we decided the Magic School Bus's name is Max, and he desires violence. Taking a letter is clever. In a D&D game, I used a Fey to lock player powers after each use by taking names. For each session, they can only use each skill or ability once. That's really cool too. I really like those kinds of. I find often that limitations, when they're done correctly, aren't frustrating, but they present an engaging challenge. If they're done incorrectly, they can be frustrating. So there is definitely a give and take with that situation that you want to get into. Dom recently did a stat conversion for Negator, and my God, is he busted! I love that. I mean, Negator should be right. That's right. RC is one of the GMs that we have for Origins, and he's one of the GMs for the Mega event. So, RC, I need to talk to you about that. Let you know which game you're in charge of. And by in charge of, I mean running the adventure, but you're not responsible for everything related to that. Oh, good. There's a chart. That's good news. I also imagine you appreciate this because of your Harley Quinn the musical game. I ran a game where I recorded a whole musical number for physician friendly. Yes, I 100% appreciate that, and I would like the recording. By chart, I mean Google Doc. Yes, I just looked at the Google Doc. Sang a custom lyric little list song from the Mikado. I'm here for it. Malaloki, I had the sheriff of a town squint at the players and say, "I don't like adventurers in my town. They bring nothing but trouble." And then went on with his day and did nothing to interfere with that. uh, One of my players spent the rest of the campaign trying to ruin his career with rumors and tried to get him fired. What I love about that is, yeah, that's exactly how players are. They get involved in like, I'm doing the thing. This NPC is in my way, and now clearly that is an important part of the story. Obviously, I'd love people to expand on that topic. What do we think makes for potentially fun limits for players? Yeah, I think that's a great topic. Would everyone get to sing everything? I like that you say "get to" instead of "have to." Um, the way I handled it was, if they sang what they were doing, they got extra hero points or they got a bonus to what they were doing, but there was no expectation that people had to sing. But people generally don't sign up for a musical game without some expectation that there is going to be singing involved. Um, it's important for games like that to specify up front that it is a musical game. That's not something you want to spring on somebody who didn't sign up for it with that knowledge or expectation. I actually, there's a couple of situations like that. Like, you don't want to spring anything that modifies the fabric of the game. You don't want to spring on somebody. I know it's fun to have that kind of surprise element, but you want to make sure that people are making informed decisions when they sign up to play in your games. Um, I was in a game last summer where I signed up to play a Deadlands game. It was a Wild West game, and about an hour into the game, the GM was like, "Okay, everybody, stand up and go to the other table. You're going to play D&D now for an hour." And I was like, "That what?" Because each of the three games that were in that time slot were actually all connected, and everybody got to swap every hour into the other game. our characters traveling from the place we were coming from and into the next place. And I got to play D&D 5e at a convention, which I never want to do because D&D is the easiest game to find at home. And usually when I'm at a convention, I want to play something that's not D&D. And the GM in question, who was running the D&D campaign, was one of my least favorite kinds of GMs. The GM who says, "I'm thinking of a number. Guess what it is, or I'll punish you." Troy says, "From the perspective of someone who wants to start building my GM skills, I'd love a stream where we outline a GM kit for new GMs, not just for conventions, but what are some essentials." Uh, GM essentials. Yeah, it is a cool idea. I would, and if I had known that that's what it was going to be when I signed up, I wouldn't have been upset about. Um, GM essentials / GM kit for new GMs. And Troy, are you thinking like physical items that GMs should have, or good resources to look at if you're new to it, books to read, things like that? Ideally, this show will be one of those things that people can point to. Can you elaborate on the guess what it is type situation? Yes. So in this instance, we were all trapped in a tavern that had a time loop. And every time anybody tried to leave the tavern, the time loop reset, and we got sent back to the beginning of the beginning of investigating what was going on. All the people forgot who we were. We had to basically re-begin everything from that point. And anytime we attempted to do something to get out of the time loop or to circumvent the time loop or to pass knowledge along to somebody else to, be like, hey, help us out, everything we attempted was not what he thought was the answer, so it didn't work. And we had to keep trying things until we figured out the exact task that he wanted us to do to accomplish that. So it's one of those instances that I called like a load-bearing clue or a load-bearing answer, something where they are the only thing, that was the only way to solve the problem. It's like if you have a riddle where there is a specific answer and somebody comes up with a clever way to actually answer that question that is technically correct, that GM would say, no, that's not the answer. Screw you. Give me the answer I want. And I do think when people talk about railroading being a negative thing, that is the sort of railroading they're talking about, where the GM has one set answer, and is unwilling to accept any player agency in modifying that answer, even if it makes sense as, an answer for the problem. For instance, a good example of that, the Harley Quinn adventure I ran this weekend had a puzzle in it. That puzzle was it was Harley Quinn in Wonderland was the adventure I ran this weekend. And they showed up to the Caterpillar's garden, which was the Catwoman Pillar's garden. I thought it was really clever, not making her the Cheshire Cat. But they got there and there were 9 hookahs set up. Each of those hookahs had something smokable in it. Only one of them was safe to smoke, and one of them was the answer to getting out of the garden. I presented a riddle to them that was essentially, in order to get high, you got to go low. In order to go low, you got to get high. And in order to get better, you got to find the center. And in my mind, each of the hookahs had 5 of the noble gases and 5 light elements and 5 heavy elements in them. And the solution I had for the puzzle was each of those elements has an atomic number. The atomic number in the middle is the one that is the correct one to smoke. Harley Quinn, being Harley Quinn, basically did a flip up to get high, to ask which one of these is correct, which one of these is the low one. And then she did a flip down and berated somebody to make them feel low to get the next answer. And then they found the correct answer through Harley Quinn being Harley Quinn instead of doing the chemical equations that I was expecting them to do. And I was like, that's a cool answer. I'm here for it. Troy says, yeah, and your pre-GM workout, things you wouldn't think to do until you realize in the moment that you need to prepare. Your GM kerchief, a snack, a collection of roll tables, extra dice. Yeah, I think that's definitely a great topic for sure. Even though it's my family, they still surprise me on what they're up to. They were in disguise in Starhaven. They all did thick British accents. Hello, governor. But when they went to 1938 Egypt, they were assigned to be British aristocracy, and they didn't feel like doing accents at all. Yeah, I mean, and that could be just an instance of they didn't feel like doing the physical act of doing the accent. Did they say, and my character says this in accent, or did you just roll with it? Players will surprise you. I often tell people that no plan survives first contact with player characters. And I find often that I over prepare for things, knowing in the back of my mind full well that everything I present to them is going to go in a way I didn't expect it to go. And I should really do more strong intros for adventures and strong motivations for characters and an end goal in mind, and then sort of go where the players go to give that information out. And that's a trick that comes with experience. I mean, more often than not, uh, I run into situations where I don't prepare very much. Um, and they wind up being the best adventures that I run during that time that I'm away, is the one I'm the least prepared for. Uh, since you're not a fan of GMs only allowing fixed solutions, I'm curious if you carry that over to mysteries. As in, will you rewrite mysteries in the background based on what players are speculating? It depends. Um, and I know that that's sort of a lame answer, but it depends is one of my go-to answers for GM advice in general. But as for rewriting mysteries in the background based on what players are speculating, generally I will have, and it depends on the kind of mystery. Like a murder mystery, generally I'll have one person who was the murderer, but multiple red herrings that make sense as particular people to track down. But if if the players make a compelling argument during their discussions with one another that this red herring actually makes more sense, and I think that that's true, I'll make that change in the background. Um, and they don't ever have to know about that. I mean, that's one of the key things as a GM, is to let your players do more work than they think they're doing for you, and being willing to understand that there are six of their brains and one of your brain, and sometimes their brains will be better at the thing, or they'll come up with a solution that you didn't consider, and just being flexible. There's certainly instances where having a specific background thing is important, but it comes down to the impact of the mystery, the importance of a specific character being responsible for whatever's going on for the wider campaign. You have the best knowledge of what's going on in the wider story. But if it's not super important, I'm a big fan of just going with the player's gut instinct and taking the credit. Yeah, I think there are very few instances where a specifically fixed solution is the correct move. At least anything that can end the game, I should say. Anything that grinds the game to a halt shouldn't last for longer than it has to. Dom, I made the foolhardy decision to make custom bespoke token borders for every character with art in Earth Prime. It has been a journey. Talk to Jonesy about that. Jonesy's a bespoke token border for every character that's a lot. I'd be curious to see who you have done already. Just finished the Thieves Guild this week. Cool. Did the Thieves Guild all get the same one, or did you do one for each member of the Thieves Guild? Looking forward to the new Valiant book for the grittier combat. Yeah, it's been cool. We have a lot of really interesting modifications for the M&M system, and I think people are having fun with it. The convention I was at this weekend, somebody was running. They were running a Justice League Gods and Monsters game using the Valiant grittier combat, because that's the setting where everybody is a brutal monster. Custom for each one. You're a mad lad, Dom, but I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I would have one token border for villains, one token border for heroes, and one token villain or one token border for in the middle or civilians or bystanders, things like that. But I'm sure they're really cool. I'd be hyped to see them. I agree with you. I've gotten tripped up before though when I've had two different players come up with two different great solutions to a mystery and then I had to pick. That does suck. Um yeah, that's a rough one. I don't know what I would do if I it's interesting because in a lot of the groups I run games for, there are a few people who are clearly like they're really good at presenting their arguments and their ideas to the other players, and the other players sort of like, oh yeah, that's probably what it is. Um, if I had two really good options come up, I would probably pick. I might even default back to the original answer if both of them are really good answers. I'd probably default back to like what my original answer was and be like, I'm glad the red herrings were convincing enough that both came to that conclusion. Um, something on prep for VTTs. Yeah, I think VTT prep is a great conversation, especially as a lot of games are moving online or coming down from online. I'm a big fan of Roll20. I did have some fun in the Shard VTT recently, and I've played the M&M module in Foundry before, so I've got some experience with multiple VTTs. Have you ever adapted a one-shot story or story from a different system in M&M, converting goblins to thieves, stormtroopers to mind-controlled cops, etc.? I actually, right now, I am running the Freedom of Dark in the multiverse of the Master Mage. They have wound up in Ravenloft, so I'm adapting Curse of Strahd for M&M purposes. But I haven't done so many pre-published modules into M&M, but I have done different genres into M&M. I've done I ran a Star Wars game at the convention this weekend that used M&M as its system. Hope you guys pick up Invincible next. I'm having a blast playing Omni-Man and MK1. I would also like to get Invincible next. I think Invincible would be awesome. But the best I can do is hope for that. It's really up to Boundless Comics, Boundless Entertainment. I've been playing Necessary Evil, so I have cool ideas for the Foundry VTT. Necessary Evil is a really good campaign. That's actually the first superhero campaign I ever played was Necessary Evil, and I played it in the original Savage Worlds. So I think converting it something like that to M&M would be a ton of fun. Own Foundry VTT. Really need to learn how to use it. Same with Dungeon Draft for map making. Yeah, I have a yearly subscription to Incarnate that I need to use more often. Yeah, and it's just prep is one of those things that is a never-ending battle. And I get frustrated because I do a lot of prep work, and then I use barely any of it. And when I actually sit down to run the game, thought about defaulting to my answer, but both of theirs were way better than my initial plan, and the party split evenly down the middle on which argument they supported. I ultimately went and shot down the idea of the player that I thought enjoyed failing more. Yeah, and that is a gut thing. I mean, that's knowing your players. That's knowing, that's reading the room. And those are very important GM skills. Is being able to read the room, especially if you're running games for people you don't know. Generally, if you're running games for your friends, you can usually tell because you've got a lot of experience with these people. But it is important to remember to check in, to keep tabs. I think reading the room is probably a good topic for Joy of Gamemastering. I'm going to put it down as a topic of discussion. M&M is greater than Savage Worlds. Super. Yeah, I agree. I like Savage Worlds for some things. Like I really like East Texas University. I've played. I like. They had a zombie apocalypse game that was a lot of fun. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It's been a long time since I played it, but I tend to agree that M&M is a much better way of simulating superpowers than most games, but I'm biased to be To be fair and completely honest, I'm biased towards Mutants and Masterminds, and I probably should be. Squire says my fave is Atomic Robo. They already have an RPG. I don't think I've seen Atomic Robo. Ran some one-shots using the VTT's Tailspire and Map tool. Both have their perks. Neither had built-in character sheets, so it was mostly for visual awareness. Yeah, and there's a discussion there too with VTT. If you're just using the platform to share maps, to share handouts, but you're handling your roles offline still, that is a perfectly valid way to play. Generally, you want to do that with people that you know and that you know are going to be honest with their dice rolls. But I'm a big fan of I'm going to use this just as their images and then go ahead and roll your physical dice, especially during 2020 to 2023. And people weren't getting to roll their physical dice. I was like, go ahead, roll your dice. I missed the sound of them hitting the table too. Yeah, and I love Savage Worlds too, Jason. It's a great system. It's just the superhero one isn't as good as Eminem. A friend of mine who's a comic artist helped animate Atomic Robo, which is how I was introduced to it. Didn't know they had an RPG either. That's awesome. Any thoughts on the quantum ogre technique / problem? I bring it up mostly because you talked about the struggle of GM prepared materials not actually getting used. I definitely have thoughts about it. I don't call it the quantum ogre thing. I call it the cup game, where you put the ball under the cup and you rotate the cups around, and the players watch where the cup is going, and no matter what cup they pick, that's where the answer is. Sort of using your prepared stuff and moving it to the location that they go into. That's a good use of your time, in my opinion, especially if you can think on the fly and modify it so that it feels like it's naturally a part of the environment they go to. For instance, you lay out this clue that they should go and investigate this haunted mansion somewhere, and the player's like, no, we don't really want to do that. We're going to go over to this swamp and do swamp things. Just move a lot of the adventure elements from that haunted mansion over into the swamp and modify them so that they feel swamp appropriate. So instead of fighting a ghost in a ballroom, they wind up fighting a group of will-o-wisps in a bog. So that it's still an ethereal-based entity, still has that sort of wide open space where there is a bit of peril related to either the sucking of the swamp or the weird swirling magical marble of the floor of the ballroom, and being able to go on the fly and think of those sorts of changes. Yeah, instead of fighting Dracula, they fight Shrek. Look, I would rather fight Dracula than Shrek. But I think talking about the Quantum Ogre is definitely a great topic for Joy of Gamemastering. Yeah, one of my big pieces of advice I always give new game masters is the players don't know the script, and they don't know that what happens wasn't what you planned. You know, I always tell people never apologize during a performance, because if something goes wrong, the players don't know that something went wrong unless you make them feel like something went wrong. They have an expectation of, I did this thing and then this happened. That must have been what the plan was, because they see us behind the screen and they think, well, the GM has this weird mythical ability to know what's going to happen, and they're just master gamers. So obviously they planned for what we were planning for. And if you don't panic, they won't know any better, is my best advice to game masters. How about Eminem solo or one-on-one as a topic? I am happy to talk about that. I've been doing a lot of research into solo gaming because I know that it's a topic of interest for Mutants and Masterminds fans, and I like the idea. I've been looking into Captain's Log from Star Trek Adventures. I've been looking into what's the name of the game? The other one I've been looking at. I've been looking at a couple of different solo games, looking for inspiration about how it could work for Eminem. I also think Eminem one-on-one is a great way to play the game. It's sort of just a specific. It's a comic book about a specific superhero, and M&M characters tend to be powerful enough that they don't need a party of adventurers if you give them enough power points to work with. Yes, Jay. The Joy of Gamemastering is back. I know I've been away for a couple months, but I am. This program's really important to me, and I want it to be here. I've been going through a few things, trying to catch up with some deadlines, and just going through some mental health stuff. So I'm glad that we're back, and we're in. I think at least for the next few months, we're going to do it every Tuesday at 5 p.m. EST. Eminem 1-on-1. That's probably we could probably talk about that at the same time as Eminem solo, and that might even be an Eminem Monday topic rather than Joy of Gamemastering topic because it's so Eminem specific. But we'll figure it out. I'd love to hear your advice about encounter scaling for one-on-one games if you find it's different than full parties. Yes, that is definitely it's a great way to. It's a great topic for sure. On our wedding day, one of the tiers was ruined in transport. The caterer was able to salvage it, and no one but me, my wife, and the caterer knew. Everyone else thought it was just a beautiful cake. Yes, see? It's like that. Topic-wise, I find that the quantum ogre factors into what can make players feel railroaded also. Yes. And railroaded in the negative way, for sure. And there's a balance to salvaging that prep work for yourself and respecting player agency. If you're not great at modifying the prep that you've done, on the fly, or excusing yourself to go to the bathroom for 15 minutes or look at the stuff that you did and making some quick edits to it instead of doing it on the fly, I would recommend using the Quantum Ogre technique in a later adventure. So, looking at, I did this prep. There's no reason they can't go here another adventure and doing something way more related to what they chose. Again, it's going to have to be heavily improvised, and that is a skill that you'll get through practice and through experience as a game master. But I find that there's no such thing as wasted prep if you're good at recycling it. And even they might even go to that other place, a session or two later. So don't be afraid to just roll with it. Yeah, and it's about respecting their agency. Players want to feel like they make good choices, and they want to feel like their choices matter. And at the end of the day, this is a group storytelling exercise, so you're not telling them a story; you are telling a story with them. Actually, I had a blog post idea of how being an author helps as a game master and how it hinders as a game master, and vice versa. Because I'm also an author, and there are times that I am like, oh, I want to tell this story, and then I have to remind myself that I'm not telling a story to someone. I'm telling a story with someone, and it's important to remember that their contributions are equally or more important than your own contributions to what's going on. The role of game master is very multifaceted. You are a storyteller, but you're also a referee, an adjudicator. You're a therapist in a lot of ways, and you are. I often describe it as I'm in charge. I'm the bumper car attendant, where if people run into the rails, it's my job to go push them off of it and get them back to playing and have a good time. Players' choices matter is very different than players making good choices. That's true. And I think another thing to remember is that it's not your job to protect them from bad choices, but it is your job to protect the game from bad choices. So finding a way to make the consequences of their actions meaningful without, torpedoing the whole story. I'm a big fan of player death being meaningful, like impactful, and not necessarily up to random chance. But that's a genre expectation for me, and that's different for every group of players. Player choices matter. I think that's a good topic of its own. My brother has terrible luck with dice. I built a character for him to help balance that bad luck. When he played using the character with my son felt underpowered in comparison. A good topic could be looking for problem builds. Yeah, I think problem characters is a good topic. Things like precogs, luck controllers, shapeshifters, basically anything that can be perceived as being more powerful than everybody else or is open to being abused by other players. Bathroom mentalist. Yeah, bathroom mentalist is I love that as a name for one of those archetypes. Used a lot of luck and crazy arrays. Yeah, and I mean I suck at rolling dice too, so having ways to mitigate bad dice rolls is very important to me as a player. And it doesn't matter what game I'm playing. I mean, I play 40k, and my greatest skill in 40k is being able to roll 1 on command. M&M, I tend to roll low. You know, it's just whatever system I'm rolling. If I need to roll high, I'll roll low. If I need to roll low, I roll high. I don't know how the dice know. They've just been trained that way. Jay says, I've said it many times, I prep all things to be able to happen anytime and anywhere in a setting. That is a good way to mitigate some of that quantum ogre issue, but it is a lot of prep work on your end. So it's a question for each GM of how much pre-work they want to do. And how much is going to come up. I mean, you don't want to have, it's important for a lot of people to not have wasted effort, but that's not wasted effort if they go to all the places. Rebel Moose says, fun fact of the fruit you listed, only blueberries are botanical blueberries. Raspberries and blackberries aren't botanical berries. I didn't know that. The tricky part of that philosophy, the players' choices don't have to be good choices to matter. So that players might make choices that they think are good, even if you disagree. Then punishing might feel unfair. Yeah, I think consequences of action should feel natural, and they should feel, it's the application of consequence that I think is where things fall down. Players shouldn't have to actually be wise to play wise characters. Yeah, and Hodgepodge, I think there is a thing to be said for if you feel like they're going to make a bad choice, maybe be like, will you make a wisdom check for me? And then you could present the reasons why you think it's not a good choice, and maybe the players will be like, oh yeah, that is a bad choice. Yeah, and that's the main thing is that's a topic by itself is why do we make players role play mental abilities but don't make them role play physical abilities? Like charisma is one of those skills that I feel is often, or one of those attributes that is often forced to be played out instead of just rolling a good dice roll, being like, I have a charisma of 20. Can I please just like make a good argument even though I don't have a good argument, and then roll a persuasion check? I do, and I'm bad about this. I will give bonuses to people who can give me a good argument before they make the roll. So I think there is some deprogramming to be done for some of that, because I would never make somebody do like 10 push-ups and then roll a strength check. Or can you pick this lock in real life and then I'll give you a +5 bonus. Jay Gray says, I guess because I enjoy making it and can reuse it, it never feels wasted, even if the current players don't see it. Yeah, and I do, I feel sort of the same way about a lot of the prep I do that goes unused. Is, well, I have it for something else if I need it. I'll have to find that players making choices I think are bad as the GM is because I didn't communicate the potential consequences well. Yeah, I think that's a good instance of, please make this check. What is the argument about at a high level is important. Yeah, I think boiling that down. And I don't know how this happened, but it's already been an hour. No punishment unduly given. I usually give players a chance to undo something after better explaining the situation. Yeah, and I think something we could borrow from wargaming in tabletop role-playing gaming is playing to intent. having them explain what their intention is, and then being able to explain how that intention might not that might not result in the effect that they're hoping for. So I'm a big fan of my intention is to be within an inch of this objective marker, and out of range of your attacker. I think that's something we can pull into tabletop role playing game very, very easily and very well. But I do have to get going. I have to get ready for my other stream that starts in about 45 minutes. I'll be over on twitch.tv/Untold Stories Project for our Tuesday night game, Something in the Dark, which is our sort of dark urban fantasy superhero game set in the gritty side of Earth Prime. But we'll be back next week where we'll be talking about some Game Master fundamentals. So thank you guys again for hanging out with me. Thank you for making this an easy step back into the joy of game mastering. I am very much looking forward to having more of these discussions. So please, I'll be back next Tuesday, 5 p.m. EST, and I will see you all then.